Don't let your mind wander off. Let it be with yourself. Today is Asana Puja Day. Many of you are here at the temple. The hall is small. We can only accommodate so much. There are many outside the hall. Today is a very important day. For Luangpo, the important Buddhist day is one is Visakha Puja Day, is the birth of the Buddha. And the second day is Asana Puja Day, is today. Is when it's the day starting of the turning the wheel of Buddhism, when there is Sangha. There is Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and started to spread out the Dhamma teaching. So today, commemorate the day that Buddhism have all three gems: the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. To have the Buddha existent is quite rare. And on Asana Puja Day, he completes his work that he has started turning the wheel of Dhamma. He started to teach. On Asana Puja Day, the first monk arise. There's only one monk. The first sermon is called Dhammacakka Vattana Sutta. That is when the wheel turns. Once the wheel starts turning, there is no stopping. No one can object the Dhamma's teaching. On his first sermon, the key takeaways, there are two key takeaways. The first one is the middle path. The second one is the Four Noble Truths. The middle path is about avoiding two extremes. The first one is letting the mind indulge in sensual pleasure or letting the mind lost. That is not toward the path of liberation. The second one is self-mortification, giving yourself a hard time. This second one really battle what was believed back then, that a lot of people thought that, who practiced thought that to be liberated from suffering, they have to torture themselves. So in the first sermon, the Buddha taught the middle path, not to be lost, get indulged in the sensual pleasure, and not to do the self-mortification. Before he became the Buddha, when he was a prince Siddhartha enjoyed he had all the sensual pleasure given to him, and then he realized that all this happiness was unsubstantial, so he decided to leave the palace and try to practice At first, he did a lot of self-mortification. He did not eat. He tortured himself until he almost died. One day, when he was in a very bad shape, there was a boy who had a pet goat. This boy saw Prince Siddhartha who was in a very bad shape. So the boy came with the goat and gave Prince Siddhartha the goat milk. So he survived. And he realized that torturing himself will yield to nothing. And he understood the truth that it should be the middle path. And he started to follow the middle path and finally liberated and attained Nibbana. At first, he thought to himself, how can people understand this truth? Many masters say the same thing too. This truth is quite difficult to attain. At first, the Buddha thought that it would be too difficult for the people in the world to understand the truth. And then there was a Brahma that came down from heaven. But in another text, it is said that because he had been collected many metta for many, many lifetimes, this make him realize that he should help out other beings. Luangpa thinks that in the text about the metta, the metta that he collected for many, many lifetimes, changed his mind that he should share this knowledge, share the truth with other beings so they can be liberated. That feels more right than having the Brahma ascend down from the heaven and beg him to teach other beings, to share the Dhamma with other beings. Because the Buddha can just say no. Many of the Arahants, after they are liberated, they thought that how could other beings understand this truth? It's very difficult. And then many of them realized that, but I was like them before, but now I am liberated, then others can be liberated too. So their hearts, their mind are like that because they have collected, they have a lot of metta in their mind. This also happened to many of the masters. Many masters realize that if I can do it, others might be able to do it too. So Lord Buddha, after he attained Dhamma, he thought to himself, who should be the first group who should be the first he should teach? Those should be the ones who have practiced, have collected have much faculty so they can understand the truth. So he thought of his previous masters. Kind of like what Luangpa had experienced before. When first Luangpa taught about how to observe the mind, there was a lot of resistance. After the Buddha was enlightened, he remembered his two masters. But those two masters, they have just passed away. In some texts, they said the angels told him that those two masters have passed. But in another text, it said that after the Buddha just think where his masters are, he would know it. You don't have to argue with all the text. It would give you so much headache. So just take the core from the text. So after the Buddha found out that his two masters passed away, and then he thought of his disciples, his 5 disciples. One was Danya Gondanya. Danya Gondanya, he was one of the ascetic who predict Prince Siddhartha that he would become the great religious leader. Other would predict that Prince Siddhartha would become either the great religious leader or the great king. But Ganya Gondanya, he was the only one who predicted that one day Prince Siddhartha will become the great religious spiritual leader. So when the Buddha met up with his 5 disciples, at first those 5 did not believe the Buddha because they thought that self-modification is the way to be liberated from suffering, is the way to enlighten. But then later on, they listened to the Buddha's first sermon. That's why the first sermon was about the middle path and to avoid the 2 extremes. One is to avoid indulging in the sensual pleasure, letting the mind be lost. The second one is the self-modification, torturing yourself to controlling. And the second key takeaway from the first sermon is the Four Noble Path. And the Eightfold Path. First of the Eightfold Path, we have to have the right view. We have to understand the right theory toward the liberation. This is called Samma Titi in Thai. The Buddha taught first, he also taught about the right thought. So we can have the right mindset. And followed by the right speech. The right thought is also included that most of the time we are lost in the sensual pleasuring kind of thought, like where are we going to eat next? Which coffee shop should I go to next? That is being lost in sensual pleasure type of thought. We still clinging to the sensual pleasures toward the eye, ears, nose, tongue, the body contact. If we are stuck here, if we are just clinging to here, we cannot go forward toward the path of this liberation. Another wrong thought is that if we still have anger or vengeance toward anyone, that type of mind is saddened. It cannot be liberated. If we still get stuck in feeling angry vengeance.
อันนี้ก็ไม่สามารถเดินเส้นทางของอริยมรรคได้
With this type of mind, you cannot walk on this path toward the liberation. So the right thoughts, including don't let your thinkings be stuck in indulge yourself in sensual pleasure. Don't let your thoughts get stuck in feeling vengeance, feeling angry toward others.
ท่านทั้งห้าฟังธรรมจักรนะว่าได้โสดาบันพวกเราฟังแล้วเราก็ไม่
The 5 disciples, after they heard the first sermon,
วันๆก็คิดถึงแต่เรื่องอย่าหาความสุขสนุกสนาน
and after he heard about
หรือบางคนก็อาฆาตแค้น
the first sermon Dhammajak Vatana Sutta, they started to walk in the path toward a liberation.
ตลอดนี้ใช้ไม่ได้หรือใจที่คิดจะ
Many of the practitioners, when they practice, they still try to control themselves.
แล้วสิ่งถัดไปที่เรา
They're still stuck in the self-mortification.
ระหว่าง
And the next in the Eightfold Path is the right speech.
วาจากัทางกายนะ
If you think about
ทางวาจา
how
ทำได้ง่ายกว่า
to break the precept, easiest way to make the precept is usually through the speech. Is that
คุยกับทางนี้อย่างนี้คุยกับอีกข้างนึงอย่างนี้
when we lie or when we say something to make other people get into fights, we say something to make people misunderstanding each other,
คำหยาบ
or you say bad words. Luangpu noticed that in the past, when Luangpu was a teenager, when Luangpu was in college,
มันจะพูดกูพูดมึง
there's a lot of people in his group that they always use bad words to talk to each other. But Luangpu usually speak politely to his friends. Luangpu felt that, oh, they use such a bad word to speak to each other. After Luangpu hang out with this group of friends, he started to use bad words too. And then Luangpu noticed that in the present, nowadays, women use more bad words than men. What happened? This is a evolution. Women use bad words more than men. Men are more polite these days. When Luangpu had to travel somewhere and had to stop by, say, the gas station, Luangpu saw that. So saying bad words, that is not the right speech. Many of you, and another one for that is not the right speech is that we say something that is not needed to be said. And this day, you don't even have to speak out. You can type onto the social network. To communicate, you don't really have to speak out. You can just type these days. Or you can make the sign, the sign. So if you still lost in the internet, you still make a lot of comments on internet, saying things that you don't need to say. It will result in your mind will be restless. And sometimes it also lead to a misunderstanding. Like if you support people who spread out the wrong message, wrong idea, that is a lot of karma, a lot of negative karma. Like for example, if you only support, if you support the wrong master, the master that spread out the wrong words, the wrong idea, the wrong view, that is a very bad karma. So the right speech is not to lie, not to say things that make people get angry at each other, not to spread out the wrong idea, the wrong words. So after you have the right view, the right thought, the right speech, next is the right action. The right action is about upholding precepts. Refrain yourself from harming other beings. Refrain yourself from stealing, taking others' belonging and other people's loved ones. For some, if you rob them, they're not as angry as taking their daughters away. So that's why the Buddha came up with the 5 precepts that to refrain yourself from harming other beings, from taking something they love away from them. If you do that, there is negative karma. But if you have upholding these precepts, your mind will be peaceful. It will be easily peaceful. And you can keep walking toward this path of liberation. And the next thing is the right livelihood, is to live our life correctly. What is living life correctly? For example, for monks, to live for the right livelihood for the monks, they have to become a beggar. They have to ask for food, but they also have to be polite when asking for food. Many of you came and told Luangpo that they have a lot of faith of this monk, and they vow to give anything to that monk if that monk asks. But it turned out that that monk never stopped asking. There was one lady who had many cars, and she vowed that to give him the cars whenever that monk needed to travel. That monk ended up traveling all the time, every day. So that monk was asking for a ride every day. Or a monk asked to give like a very expensive amulet. So that lady came to ask Luangpo, like, what to do, because I already gave my words. And Luangpo said, it's easy. You just have to go back and tell that person that I'm not going to do it anymore. It's not karma. Is that you're not letting them indulge in the defilements. So it's even better for that person. So the right livelihood for monks is that they have to be a beggar, but they have to be polite. And if you vow yourself to do something for a monk, you have to have the limitation. You have to set the limitation. Like for example, you can say that if you want to give to something to the monk, you can give with limitation. You have to be precise how much you want to give, and also the duration, that maybe you will help out for 4 months. That's enough. But if you want to vow to Luangpo, you can vow for the rest of your life, because Luangpo always forget after you make the vow, because Luangpo never asks anyone for anything, not even for 1 cent. Since when Luangpo was a lay person, when Luangpo was a lay person and he went to this temple in Tak province, his companion stop by that temple. He took a lot of food, and after they got back in the car, they didn't stop ever again. Luangpo did not eat then, and he did not know that they were not going to make any pit stop. But Luangpo did not ask that person for any food. So Luangpo and also Mata Nut, they never ask for anything. If you meet anyone who keep asking you things, that they are not real monks. They are not the true practitioners. But for lay people, you should not ask so much either. Like a lot of people do not want to work, but they want to ask the government to pay them. If you are still a lay person, you have to earn a living, honest living. That is the right livelihood for the lay people. When you have the right livelihood, your job will not harm others people and do not harm yourself. So those first 5 is about theory, having the right theory, having the right view of how of this path of liberation. Next thing is the effort. So the next thing in the effort path is the right effort. Is making the effort to let go of the unwholesomeness and cultivate wholesomeness to arise. If you already have some wholesomeness, find a way to prosper that wholesomeness. Find a way for that wholesomeness to prosper. For example, when we practice, when you practice sitting meditation and walking meditation, when you practice, it's not about trying to show off to other people, but it's about training to be mindful and knowing so of your defilement. So if you are doing the walking meditation and somebody is looking at you and now you want to look good and walk more proper to show off, that is the defilement. You have to be aware of that. So we practice so we can battle with the defilement and to cultivate wholesomeness. How to be free from the defilement is the right mindfulness. After the right effort, we understand what we have to do is to practice, to cultivate wholesomeness. The next thing is to have the right mindfulness. This is one of the key things of the practice. The Buddha taught about the 4 foundation of mindfulness. Every time you are mindful, all the wholesome minds arise with mindfulness or sati. When we practice, we are mindful of our body and our own mind. So be mindful, be aware of your body and your mind. That is the training. In this generation, a lot of people we do not have a lot of faculties. We have stronger defilements. So if you run into beautiful people, sometimes you get lost in them. People with a lot of faculties, when they see beautiful people, they realize that is just a body. A body is just something with a skill, with covered with skin. Inside is just something foul, dirty. But for most people, when they see beautiful people, they say, "Oh, that person is so beautiful. They have a good physique. They look so good." So that's why the Buddha, the masters, taught us to only be mindful of our own body and our own mind, not pay attention outward. To practice mindfulness or sati, you can have the object of meditation. It can be either the body or your mind. With the full foundation of mindfulness, that you can observe the physical form, the mental form, the feeling. But the Dhamma is more difficult to observe. You don't have to worry about that for now. You can observe the body. For example, right now, you can be aware of your body. The body is breathing in, breathing out. You can be aware of that. You can be aware of your mind. So sati or mindfulness is to know so, to recognize, to be aware of the body and the mind. As you practice the full foundation of mindfulness, the first goal is that so we can be aware. So you can train by knowing so as you breathe in and out. If you can be aware of your breath, then you can be aware of yourself all day long. If you can be aware of your body movement as you sit, stand, laying down, walk, you will be aware all day long. So this is the training of the full foundation of mindfulness. The more you practice, the more you can be aware all day long. When you have the right mindfulness or the right sati, when you cultivate that a lot, it will lead to the right samadhi. Not a lot of people understand the right samadhi. Many people, when they sit and they say they are sitting and doing the meditation, but they fall into these two extremes. One is that either their mind is just lost or they are just controlling their mind. They are not practicing in the middle path. So the correct samadhi or samma samadhi is in the middle path. All the Eightfold Path as you practice, they all have to be in middle path. So if you keep being mindful of your body and your mind, you can be mindful of the feeling of the body and the mind. Either it is feeling good, feeling bad, feeling neutral. You can observe your mind. Is it happy, unhappy, or neutral? Luangpu used that when he first started to practice. Because Luangpu have a temperament of getting angry easily. So Luangpo observed that when the mind is with anger or without anger, as the anger arises, he knew so. When the anger still exists for a while, he knew so. When the anger falls away, he would know so. When you observe the feeling that arises, you cannot observe at the present moment, but you observe it right after the defilement arises. So when the anger arises, it followed by the mind that knows the anger that just arisen. So when Luangpo started to practice, Luangpo would know so of the anger that just arisen. And then it moved on, Luangpo moved on to other type of defilement, like when he would know so when the lust just arises, he would know so when greed just arises. After he kept knowing so, he would know more defilements. And he would be aware of his mind in more detail. So every time Luangpo noticed that every time you come into contact with something, feeling arises. When feeling is pleasure, then another defilement would come in, arise simultaneously with the feeling, is that the lust would arise with pleasure feeling. Or when you have unpleasure feeling, then anger would arise with the unpleasure feeling. So Luangpo started to observe his mind in more detail of the defilement of the feeling. Also, and then he started to see the clinging, the attaching to the objects. Every time there's a clinging, there's wanting, the mind clings to the object right away. Every time the mind starts to cling, when there's wanting, the mind started to cling, then suffering. That is the form of suffering. Luangpo started to see when the mind grabs the mind, the mind is grabbing all the objects. Many people, when they practice, they see that the mind is grasping their eyes, ears, nose, tongue to observe the other objects. The hardest one to see that the mind is grabbing the mind itself. When the mind is grabbing to the eye, ears, nose, tongue, and the body and the mind itself, that's when it is called existence arise. And this is also the form of suffering. What are we clinging to the most? We are clinging to the 5 aggregates. So the Buddha also explained what aggregates are. And he also concluded that the 5 aggregates are the form of suffering. So you have the right mindfulness and right samadhi. You will also attain the noble mind and a stable observer. The correct samadhi is not about, it doesn't mean calmness or peacefulness. It's about the mind being stable without trying to force the mind to be stable. And the mind is stay within itself without you trying to force it to stay. If there's any trying, that would fall into another extreme, the extreme of self-mortification. So you let the mind wander off. That is letting the mind indulge in sensual pleasure. But if you try to control, if there's a trying, there is a controlling, That is the self-modification. So avoid the two extremes. This is why Luangpo started to teach about the two extremes. To be aware when the mind is lost, to be aware when the mind is starting to control, start to hold. So a lot of people, when they practice as they sit and meditate, many are lost into these two extremes. One either let their mind be lost in the dream, or they are controlling themselves. This is why Luangpo started to teach about these two extremes, the mind getting lost and over-focusing, over-controlling. A lot of people did not understand Luangpo's way of teaching. They thought that Luangpo taught wrong. They asked why Luangpo did not taught about Bhutto, doing the Bhutto mantra, or sitting and meditate. This is why Luangpo focus about the middle path since he started to teach. If you practice correctly, then this will lead to the right liberation. There are also terms called Sammayana, that is to have the right wisdom to see the three characteristics. There's many course retreat that say that this is a vipassana course retreat, but those people who go in, a lot of time they cannot cultivate vipassana because they do not have the correct mindfulness and correct samadhi. They have to understand the Eightfold Path, and all the Eightfold Path have to be in the middle way. When you have the right samadhi, then you will have the wisdom toward the liberation. But you also need to have the right mindfulness or the right sati. When you cultivate enough right samadhi, then it will lead to the right wisdom, and one can be liberated in this path. In the Eightfold Path, why did the Buddha say that you have to be in the middle path? For example, with the right livelihood, if you're not in the middle path, you may be greedy and never have enough. And you might be greedy and you cannot go forward toward this path of liberation when the mind is greedy. When your mind is liberated, you will understand the Four Noble Paths. The Lord Buddha taught in very detail about Four Noble Paths. What is suffering? For the beginners, he would say that suffering is to get old, get sick, and die, to run into something that you do not like, to run into something that makes you uncomfortable. And the way to what to do is to know what is suffering.
ตัวไหนแก่
But for in
ตัว
detail,
รูปมันแก่ ตัวไหน
the
เจ็บ
Buddha would
ตัว
say
รูป
that
มันเจ็บ ตัวไหน
the
ตาย ตัว
suffering
รูปมัน
is
ตาย
the five aggregates,
งั้นไอ้แก่เจ็บตายอะไรนะ
and
มันเป็
to
น
know
อาการของ
suffering
ตัวรูป
is to know the five
ความ
aggregates.
สมหวังความผิดหวังทั้งหลายอะเป็นความรู้สึกทางใจ
Because everything falls under the five
เราจึงเลย
aggregates.
ประมวลลงมา
What is
ว่า
getting old
โดย
is
สรุป
our physical
ขัน
form.
ธ์ทั้งห้าคือ
That
ตัว
is
ทุกข์
the
ท่านก็
physical
สอน
form
ต่อ
type of
คิด
aggregates.
ต่อทุกข์ หน้าที่ต่อ
And
ทุกข์
feeling
คืออะไร
sad
คน
is
ในโล
the
ก
defilement
ก
is
ลัว
the
ทุกข์
feeling
เกลียด
aggregates.
ทุกข์ หนีทุกข์ เวลาทำบุญก็อธิษฐาน ขออย่าได้เจอความทุกข์
But
พระพุท
what
ธ
to
เจ้า
do
สอน
is to know
ไม่
the
ให้เป็นอย่างนั้น
suffering.
นะ
To know the
ท่าน
suffering
บอก
is to
ทุกข์
know
ให้
the
เรา
five
รู้
aggregates.
ไม่ใช่ให้ละไม่ใช่ให้หนีนะให้
The
รู้
Buddha
มัน
said to
อะไร
know
เรียกว่า
suffering
ทุกข์
is
ขัน
not
ธ์
to
ห้า
run
เรียกว่า
away
ทุกข์
from suffering.
เมื่อ
A
เรา
lot
มี
of
หน้า
people
ที่
try
รู้
to
กา
run
ย
away from
รู้
suffering.
เว
They
ทนา
beg to be
รู้
free
ความ
from
จำได้
suffering.
รู้ รู้ ควา
But
มปรุงดี
the
ปรุงชั่ว
duty for the
รู้ เท่า
Buddhist,
ทัน
for the
จิตใจของ
practitioner,
ตัว
the
เอง
Buddha
ซึ่ง
said
เกิดดับหมุนเวียน
to
ไป
us
ตามทวารทั้งหมด
that our duty
เนี่
is
ย
to
คือให้รู้
know
สิ่งเห
the
ล่านี้
suffering.
นะเพราะฉะนั้นถ้าทำกรรมฐานแล้ว รู้อดีต รู้อนาคตนะ
So when you
มัน
practice
ใช่ไหม
and you know
มันยังไม่ใช่
your
นะ
last life,
รู้
let's
อ
say
ดีต
you
รู้อนา
know
คต ระลึก
the
ชาติได้
future,
รู้ว่า
that is
คนนี้
not
เคยเป็น
knowing
อ
the
ย่างนี้
suffering.
เมื่อ 500 ชาติก่อน อะไรเงี้ย รู้พวกนี้นะ
If you know
มี
your
แต่วุ่น
past
วาย
life, who was
อั
your
นนี้ไม่
wife
ใช่
in
รู้
the
ทุกข์
previous life, that is
รู้
knowing the
ทุกข์ก็คือ
suffering.
รู้กาย
That
รู้
is
ใจ
not knowing
เนี่
the
ย
suffering.
รู้เพื่ออะไร
To know the suffering
ถ้า
is
รู้
to
ทุกข์แจ่ม
know
แจ้ง
the
เป็นปัญหา
aggregates,
สมุทัย
know
ซึ่ง
the
เป็น
five
ตัวตัณ
aggregates.
หา วิ
Once
ท
you
ยา
truly know the
นะ
five aggregates,
ถ้าเรา
you
ละ
can
สมุ
let
ทัย
them
ได้ เรา
go.
จะแจ้งนิโรธ
You
นิ
can
โร
let
ธ คือ
them
พระนิพ
down.
พาน เรา
After
จะ
you
สิ้น
can
ทุกข์
let
พระนิพ
them
พานได้ นะ แล้วการที่เรารู้ทุกข์จน
be
กระทั่ง
free
ละ
of the
สมุ
five
ทัย จนกระ
aggregates,
ทั่งแจ้งนิโรธ
then one
อัน
can
นั้น
be
ก็คือการเจ
liberated.
ริญมรรค นะ เพราะฉะนั้นถ้าเราจะเจริญมรรค เราจะทำยังไง รู้ทุกข์ นี่เราจะรู้กายรู้ใจตามความเป็นจริงได้
So
เรา
how
ต้
to
องพั
know
ฒ
the
นา
five
เครื่องมือของ
aggregates
เรา นะ
is,
มีสัมมาส
or
ติ
to know your
มี
body
สั
in
ม
your
มาสมา
mind,
ธิ
is
พอ
that you
จิตเราตั้ง
need to
มั่น
have the
ส
right
ติระลึกรู้
sati, a
รู
right
ปธรรม
mindfulness, and the right
จิตตั้งมั่น
samadhi.
อยู่
When
นะ
you have the
มี
right
สัญญา
samadhi,
หมายรู้
you
ความ
will
เป็น
also
ไตรลักษณ์
attain the mind
ของ
that
รู
is
ป
a
ธรรม
stable
ก็จะ
observer.
เห็นรูปธรรม
With
ทั้
the
งหมด
mind that is a
ไม่
stable
เที่ยงเป็นทุก
observer,
ข์เป็น
you
อนั
will
ตตา
see
ไม่
that
ใช่
all
คน
five
ไม่ใช่สัตว์ ไม่
aggregates,
ใช่เรา ไม่ใช่ข
they
อง
fall under
ถ้า
the
จิต
three
ตั้งมั่น มีสติ
characteristics.
ระลึก
They
รู้
are
นามธรรม
subjected
ก็
to
จะ
the
เห็น
three
นามธรรมทั้งหมดเลย
characteristics.
ไม่เที่ยงเป็นทุกข์เป็นอนัตตา นะ
You will
ไม่
see
ใช่คน
that
ไม่ใช่สัตว์
all
ไม่
the
ใช่เรา
five
ไม่ใช่ของ
aggregates,
นี่
they are
คือปัญญา
suffering,
ปัญญา
non-self,
นะ ต้องเห็นไตรลักษณ์
impermanent. That is the
ในหลวงเมื่อ
wisdom.
ก่อนนะ ท่านเคยไปถามหลวงปู่เทศ
The
บ
previous
อกอะไร
king
เป็นที่
asked
สุดของ
Master
ศีล
Tet,
อะไรเป็นที่สุดของสมาธิ อะไรเป็น
he
ที่สุดของ
asked,
ปัญญา
what is the
หลวง
key
ปู่เทศก็ถ
to
วายวิสัช
the
นาตอบ
precepts,
นะ
to the
บอก
wisdom,
ที่สุดของศีลคือเจตนาวิโรธ เจ
to
ตนาที่งด
samadhi?
เว้น อย่างคนแก่อายุ
Master,
90
Venerable
เนี่ย
Master Luangpu
แล้วบ
Tet
อกว่าไม่ได้เป็น
replied,
ชู้กับใครอะ มันไม่มีปัญญาเป็นชู้ อย่างนี้ไม่ถือว่ามีศีลนะ มีศีลไหม เป็นชู้กับเขาได้ แต่ไม่เป็นนะ ขโมยเขาได้ไม่มีใครเห็นนะ ก็ไม่ขโมยอะ มีเจตนางดเว้นอะ อย่างนี้ถึงจะเป็นศีล นะ ถ้าเจ้า
replied
ของ
that
เขาเฝ้า
you
อ
have
ยู่
to
เพื่อน
have
เฝ้าอยู่
intention
ไปเราบอกเราไม่เอาของ
to
เขาอะ
uphold the
ก็ไม่ใช่
precepts.
ถือศีล นะ ท่านบอกที่สุดของศีลคือเจตนางดเว้น แล้วก็เจตนานี่มันลึกนะ ถ้าเราสติดีเนี่ย มันมีเจตนางดเว้นโดยอัตโนมัติเกิดขึ้น ไม่
The
รู้
word
ไปเอาของเขา ทำ
intention
ไม
is
ไม่รู้
that
เป็น
if
ชู้
you
กับเขา
have,
ทำไม นะ ไม่
for
รู้จะไป
Master
ทำร้ายเขา
Luangpu
ทำไม
Tet, it means that
นะ
when
เรา
you
มี
have
สติ
sati,
นะ กุศลมันเกิดแทน
wholesomeness will arise and
ที่
you
สุดของ
will,
ส
will
มาธิ
refrain
คือ
yourself
อัปปนา
from,
สมาธิ นะ ให้
from
สงบ
breaking
เอ
the
ง
precept on your
อัป
own.
ปนาสมาธิคือจิตที่ทรงอยู่ในฌาน ซึ่งคนยุคนี้ทำไม่ค่อยได้แล้วล่ะ ในหลวงท่านเก่งนะ ครูบาอาจารย์ชมทุกองค์เลย
The
บอก
past
โอ้ ท่าน
king,
เข้า
he,
สมาธิ
he,
เก่ง
he
มาก
was
เก่ง
very
ทุกข้อ
good in the
ที่สุดของ
practicing
ปัญญา
samadhi. He was able to
คือ
enter
ไตร
a
ลักษณ์
deep level of
งั้นถ้ามีปัญ
samadhi.
ญาแล้ว โอ้ รู้หมดเลย จักรวาลเกิดจากอะไร สัตว์ตัวนี้เกิดแล้วไปไหน อะไรอย่างงี้ ตายแล้วไปไหน อะไรอย่างเงี้ย ไอ้นี่ไม่ใช่
As
ปั
you
ญญาสำ
practice,
คัญอะไร
if
ปั
you
ญญาสำคัญคือการเห็น
you
ไตร
have the
ลักษณ์
knowledge
ของรู
of
ปนามกาย
knowing the
ใจ
heaven, knowing different realms,
เนี่ย ท่านปัญญวัค
knowing
คี
the past life,
ได้ ฟังธรร
that is
งั้นก็
not
ต้องรู้ทุกข์นะสิ่งที่ต้อง
following
ฝึก
knowing
พัฒ
the
นาคือใจ
suffering
คือใจนี้
because it's not
ถ้า
knowing
รู้ทุกข์
your
ได้
own
ก็จะ
body
ละ
and
ส
your
มุ
own
ทัย
mind.
ได้
If you
ถ้าละ
can
สมุ
really
ทัยได้
know
ก็จะแจ้งนิโรธคือแจ้ง
the
พระนิพพาน
body and
ได้
the mind or the five
ขณะ
aggregates,
ที่แจ้งพระนิพพานนั้นขณะ
you can let them
นั้น
go.
อริยมรรคก็เกิดขึ้นนะเนี่ยเส้นทาง
You can be
ที่ดี
liberated from them. That is
ข้างในรู้
how
ทุก
to
ข์
be
ละ สมุทัย
how to work toward this path of
อย่างถ้าเรา
enlightenment.
สามารถเห็นได้นะร่างกายของเราเนี่ย
If you can
คือ
see
ตัว
that
ทุ
this
กข์
body is a form of suffering,
พวกเราไม่เห็นว่าร่างกายของเราคือ
most
ตัว
people
ทุกข์
do not see that.
เราเห็นว่าร่างกายของเรา
They
ทุ
see
กข์บ้าง
that
สุขบ้าง
sometimes the body is
จิต
bring
ใจ
you
ของเราคือ
pleasure,
ตัวทุกข์
sometimes
เราก็ไม่
it
เห็น
bring you
เราเห็นว่าจิตใจของเราทุกข์บ้างสุขบ้าง
displeasure.
ตราบใดที่ยังเห็นส
And
ภาวะ
also
ที่
this,
เป็น
the
คู่
same
อยู่
goes to
นั้น
the mind. Sometimes the
มี
mind
สุ
is
ขก็มี
happy,
ทุกข์
sometimes the mind is not
จิต
happy.
ยังเกิดความดิ้นรนเหมือนน้ำ
But if you
ที่
still
ต่ำกว่า
feel
ที่ต่
that it
ำ
still
น้ำ
give
จากที่
you
สูงก็ไหลลงที่ต่ำ
happiness,
ธรรมชาติของจิตน่ะ
the mind
ก็
still
จะไหลลงที่
struggle,
ต่ำ
try to attain this happiness to last.
รู้กายรู้ใจนะคอยรู้
So
สึก
be
ไป
aware of your
ถ้า
body
เรา
and your
ดู
mind.
เรื่อย ๆ เราจะเห็น
If
นะ
you
กาย
keep
นี้
being
มีแต่
aware,
ทุกข์
you will see that
แค่เราหายใจออก
there's nothing but
ไป
suffering
เรื่อย ๆ ก็ทุกข์ ก็ต้องหายใจเข้าแก้
with
ทุกข์
this body.
หายใจเข้าเรื่อย ๆ ก็ทุกข์ ก็ต้องหายใจออกแก้
If you
ทุกข์
breathe in, take a
นั่
breath,
งนาน
long
ๆ ก็
deep
ทุกข์
breathe
นะ
in,
ก็ต้องลุกขึ้นเดิน
the
ลุก
body
ขึ้น
has
ยืน
to
ลุกขึ้นเดิน
exhale.
ยืนนาน เดิน
Otherwise,
นาน
it
เมื่อย
will
ล้า
die.
นั่งนานลงไปนอนอย่างนี้ทำไมต้องเปลี่ยนอิริยาบ
If you
ถ
sit for a long time, you
เรา
also
เปลี่ยน
have
อิ
to
ริยา
shift
บถ
your
เพื่อ
body
หนีทุกข์
to run away from
เนี่ยเรา
suffering.
คันเงี้ย คัน
For
เราก็
example,
ปล่อย
you
มัน
feel
เนี่ย
itchy,
ร่างกาย
so
มัน
you
เคลื่อนไหว
scratch yourself.
เพื่ออะไร
That's
เพื่อหนี
body
ทุกข์
moving. That is
อิ
also to
ริ
run
ยาบ
away
ถ
from
เป็นตัว
suffering.
ที่ปิดบังทุกข์นะ
The body
อิริยา
movement
บถเป็นตัวที่
blind
ปิด
us
บังความทุก
from
ข์ ทำให้
seeing
เรามองไม่
the
เห็น
truth that this body is
เพราะ
nothing
งั้น
but
ต่อไปนี้
suffering.
นะ เรามีสติอยู่กับร่าง
So
กาย
from
นะ
now on,
ร่าง
be
กายหายใจ
aware,
ออกรู้สึก หายใจ
be
เข้ารู้
mindful
สึก
of the body.
ยืนเดินนั่งนอนรู้สึก
As you
ถ้าเรา
breathe
ไม่
in
ช
and
อบ
out,
ร่าง
no
กายเคลื่อน
cell.
ไหวรู้สึก
As you
ร่างกายหยุดนิ่ง
walk,
รู้
you
สึก
sit,
ต่อ
you
ไปเราจะรู้เลยว่า
lay
ร่าง
down,
กายนี้คือก้อนทุกข์
no cell.
ทำไมต้องเคลื่อนไหว
And then
เพราะ
one
มั
day
น
you
ทุ
will
กข์
see
นะ
that this body is
มันทุ
nothing
กข์
but
มันก็ต้อง
suffering.
เคลื่อนไหว
This
เพื่อ
is
หนี
why
ทุ
it
กข์
has
เป็น
to
คำ
keep
เข้าใจ
moving. It
ให้
has
ท่าน
to
รู้
run
ให้
away
ดี
from suffering
ให้รู้
from time to time.
รู้สึกลงไปในกาย ดูซิ
So be aware of the
ร่างกาย
body.
นี้เป็น
Let's
สุขหรือ
see
ทุกข์ ครูบาอาจารย์ท่าน
if
เคย
this
สอน
body is
บอก
really,
ให้ไปนั่งเก้าอี้ที่สบายๆ นั่ง
really,
เก้าอี้
really
กันกระแส
happy or
ไฟท่านมีให้
unhappy.
นั่ง
Is
คือเก้า
is
อี้แบบที่
really
นวดน่ะนะ
is
เคยเห็น
give
ไหม
you happiness
หล
or
วงพ่อสอนเล่ามา
unhappiness.
อย่าซื้อมานะ เดี๋ยวได้ยินนึกว่าหลวงพ่ออยาก
Let's
ให้
say if you are trying to, if you
อยา
buy
ก
a
นั่งเก้า
very
อี้ที่
comfortable
น
chair,
วด ๆ
the
นั่
one
ง
that give
นา
you
น
can
ๆ สุ
can
ขห
give
รือ
you a
ทุกข์
massage. Let's say if you sit there
ทุ
for
ก
a
ข์นะ
long time, not moving,
ไม่ต้อง
will you
เครื่องนวด
suffer?
นะ เอาคนมานวด
It
บ่อย
will suffer.
นวดเช้ายันเย็นนะ
Another
บางคนไม่
example,
ไหว
you
แล้ว
give
กล้า
yourself a
มเนื้อ
massage.
ยับเยินหมดแล้ว
You get a massage all day
เนี่ย
long.
ให้เรารู้ลงไปที่ร่างกายเราให้
Instead
บ่อย
of giving you pleasure,
เรา
it
จะ
will
เห็น
give
ว่าร่าง
you
กายเนี่ย
body
มี
ache.
ทุกข์ เพียงแต่
So
บาง
if
ที
you
ทุกข์มาก
pay
บางที
attention
ทุกข์
to
น้
your
อย
body, be
ตรง
aware of
ทุ
your
กข์น้อย
body,
น่ะ
be
มัน
mindful
ไม่
of
มี
your
ปัญหา
body,
เขาบอกว่ามันคือสุข
you will see that
แล้วเรา
the
ภาวนา
body is
นะ
nothing but
รู้ทัน
suffering.
จิตใจเรื่อย ๆ เราก็จะเห็นจิต
The
ใจเรา
same
มีแต่
goes to
ทุ
when
กข์มาก
you
กับทุกข์น้อย
observe the mind.
คนที่ไม่ได้ภาวนา ภาวนายังไม่ถึง
If you
ขั้น
practice
ที่
in
พอนะ
detail, you
จะ
will
รู้
see
ว่าร่าง
that
กาย ไอ้จิตใจเราเนี่ย เดี๋ยวก็สุข
there's
เดี๋ยวก็ทุกข์
nothing but suffering
แต่
that
ถ้า
comes
ภาว
with the
นาเต็ม
mind.
ที่นะ เราจะเห็น
Usually it
จิ
just
ตใจมีแต่
suffer
ทุ
a
กข์
lot
ล้
of
วนๆเลย ทุกข์
suffer
มาก
less.
กับทุกข์น้อยเท่านั้นแหละ
But
มันทุกข์
for
ยัง
most
ไง
people, they feel that sometimes the
ถ้าเรา
mind
ภาวนา
is
เราจะรู้ว่า
happy
จิ
or
ตมีภาระ
unhappy.
ตลอดเวลา
But if you practice, you
จิ
will
ต
see
นั้น
that
ทำงานตลอดเวลาเลย
the
ทั้งวัน
mind
ทั้งคืน
has
ไม่เคยได้หยุด
a
พัก
lot
เลย
of
นะ
burden all the time. It's
เดี๋ยวก็ต้อง
working
ออกไป
all the
ดู
time
รูป
without
เดี๋ยวก็ต้อง
breaks,
ไปฟัง
without
เสียง
rest.
ไปดู
Sometimes the
ข่า
mind
ว ไป
has
รู้
to
รส
listen,
รู้สัมผัส
sometimes the
ร่าง
mind
กาย
have to look,
ไปคิด
then
นึก
sometimes
ทำ
the
ใจ
mind have to feel,
ก็
sometimes
ทุก
the
ข์
mind
กั
has
น
to
มันก็
know
ต้อง
what
ทำงานขึ้นมา
know the
ตลอดเวลา
thoughts. It's working
อย่า
all
นึ
the
กว่าไม่แค
time.
ร์นะ
It is exhausting when you see
ร่าง
that.
กายมันก็ทำงานตลอด
Oh, the body is also working all the time. You think that after work you go home and you take a rest laying down, but actually the body is still walking, is still working. The heart is still beating. That's the same goes to the mind. The mind has to perceive emotions, different objects all the time. Imagine if you have a wife that likes to complain all day long. Will that be happy or unhappy? So the mind carries a lot of burden all the time. As you practice, you will see that 5 aggregates are nothing but burden, nothing but suffering. Arahants, they can let go of the 5 aggregates permanently. After they let them go, they do not grasp on to the 5 aggregates never again. So that's why they are free, their mind is liberated. But most people, they're still grabbing to these 5 aggregates. That's why the mind struggles all the time. But before you can see that, you have to see suffering, clearly see the suffering. When you clearly see the suffering, you can let them go. If you clearly see your body, that the body is nothing but suffering, you will not wish the body to be comfortable, to be happy anymore. If you clearly see that the mind is nothing but suffering, you will not wish for the mind to be happy, to not suffer, because it's impossible, because the mind and the body themselves are the form of suffering. If you truly can see that, there's no more wanting the body and the mind to be happy. The mind no longer struggle trying to make the body and the mind happy. After the mind can let them go, then there's no more struggle. The mind can truly be liberated. So we can truly see the suffering. You can let go of the cause of suffering. And that marks the end of suffering. That is the path of the Four Noble Path. This is the path toward the liberation. That is all the Dhamma talk for today. The 5 first disciples didn't hear this long sermon. We have heard more than 500 sermons, but still listen more. Don't give up. Don't feel discouraged. Most people who liberated in a short time, because they have been practicing, they have persevered for a long time already. It's like they have been working so hard now that they are rich. But we just started, so we still feel that that's still a long way to go. But right now, we are still poor in Dhamma wise. So we have to work on this, keep collecting so we can be rich. So work on this is like, for example, like develop ourselves, uphold the precepts, practice. It may feel difficult today, but it will be easier tomorrow. I mean, in the future. But everyone wants something easy. But if you want something easy, you will be stuck in this cycle of suffering. This evening, there is a candlelight procession ceremony. If you do not have time, you can do it yourself at home. And at home, you can practice, offer this practice to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So let's give it a try. That today, we are going to be mindful all day long and offer the practice to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Let's not be lost in the defilement today. Let's not let the defilement win today. Let's practice and think as if that we are walking, following the path that the Buddha has led us. The Buddha is right in front of us, and we are following his path. toward liberation. So let's do the walking meditation today and set your mind like as if you are walking after the Buddha. Next, the abbot of the temple asked for those who have those people who have to help out in the next ceremony of the bearing the orbs, that mark the temple's area, have a meeting after this talk. For others, you can go home. อนุโมทนาค่ะ